Las Vegas Raiders dug themselves a big hole to start the season 2-4 going into Week 8 against the 2-5 New Orleans Saints. This stretch of 5 to 6 games was supposed to be winnable for the Raiders to get into the playoff picture, but I'm not too sure what a winnable game is for the Raiders anymore. They didn't look prepared to play as Josh McDaniels was outcoached by Dennis Allen, who would never be mistaken for Bill Belichick. McDaniels couldn't get his offense past the 50-yard line until later in the fourth quarter, and the defense has been the defense. All I'll say about defensive coordinator Patrick Graham is the New York Giants defense is better without him this year. The Raiders have some things to figure out on both sides of the ball, and they better hurry because they're running out of games. The main reason why most of the media picked the Raiders to finish last in the AFC West this year is because of the offensive line. And in this game, they did nothing to dispel that. The Saints' defensive front woke up today. The last time they had those type of problems with the defensive front was the opening week against the Los Angeles Chargers. We can check all the Pro Football Focus offensive line rankings, stats, and analytics we want to. What makes a good offensive line is how they play against a good defensive line. Quarterback Derek Carr had his problems throwing into triple coverage at times, but there was no way he was going to have a good game with the way he was protected. He was pressured on 41.4% of his passes, hit 9 times and sacked 4 times. That's a ton of pressure, and the Saints got there with 4. Let me ask you guys something. Name a quarterback that had a good game when the opposing defense was getting to the quarterback with 4. Take your time and do all the research you want. I hope this was just a one-game thing because the Raiders can't have another game like this. As bad as the Raiders were protecting the passer, they were worse rushing the passer. The Raiders were only able to pressure quarterback Andy Dalton twice, and they had no hits and no sacks. They didn't even hit Andy Dalton. They didn't hit Taysom Hill when he was in at quarterback either, unless he was a few yards down the field at the end of a run. So I guess that's why you couldn't tell if that was Dalton, Hill, or Drew Brees out of retirement when the Saints were throwing the ball Sunday. But what do you expect? We already know the moves the Raiders made this offseason to help Max Crosby rush the passer aren't working out. Edge rusher Chandler Jones has been little more than a shell of his former self, and interior defensive lineman Bilal Nichols, well, he is not as advertised. That's why they have Crosby, one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, and are still last in the NFL in sacks. The Raiders only have 9 sacks on the year, and Crosby has 6 of them. And guess what? He didn't do anything Sunday either. Like the rest of the Raiders, not even a quarterback hit. The Raiders have huge problems in coverage because the roster wasn't put together right. The corners are good as they have yet to allow a 100-yard receiver. They're better in man coverage at that, especially Rock Ya-Sin, who's given up a completion percentage of only 30% and a quarterback rating of 39.6. And Nate Hobbs is eligible to come off of IR in 2 to 3 weeks, but in the meanwhile, receivers are not lighting the Raiders up. It's tight ends and running backs lighting the Raiders up in the passing game and man coverage. So when the Raiders are playing zone, they're not doing what's best for their corners. And when they're playing man, they're not doing what's best for their linebackers and safeties. You saw what Alvin Kamara did to Raider linebackers. You see what opposing tight ends have done to Raider linebackers and safeties too. If this problem's going to improve this year, 2 things are going to have to happen. Safety Trayvon Merrick's going to have to pick it up in man coverage. I know he can do it because he was good in man coverage last year. And linebacker Jayon Brown has to get healthy. Otherwise, we wait till next year. As you know, the Raider run defense is pretty good. They limited Saints running backs to 3.3 yards per carry. But the Saints rushed for 136 yards and 4.3 yards per carry total because of quarterback Taysom Hill. Quarterback, Wildcat, whatever you want to call him. He averaged 6.1 yards per carry on the Raiders. And from the looks of things, the Raiders didn't look ready for it when he came into the game with his package. I'm putting that on Graham. He has to be more prepared for that because he knows it's coming. Alright, when Mac Hollins and Foster Moreau have almost twice as many targets in the game as Davante Adams, that's a problem. When Keelan Cole and Amir Abdullah have just as many targets as Davante Adams, that's also a problem. And opposing teams shouldn't be able to take Adams completely away. He can't scheme him open like other coaches with great receivers. And don't you think it'd be nice if he gave the ball to Josh Jacobs going forward instead of Adams going sideways in a short yardage? And it was too early in the game to go for it on 4th down in your own territory. I'm not expecting the Raiders to go to the playoffs like I was, but I'm not giving up on this season either. I will give up on the season when they are officially eliminated from playoff contention. A lot of the teams ahead of the Raiders in the wild card race lost this week. I know Sunday wasn't a good look for the Raiders, but with what's left on the schedule, they can still get back into the thick of things. So yes, I'm still looking for the Raiders to fix all the problems that have been plaguing them this season so far. At least enough to win some games down the stretch, but they really gotta hurry, because they're running out of games. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.